in tune to watching any news, you would see that millions of people participated in climate strikes across the globe. And it was organized by our youth, our incredible youth. Here we see a picture of Greta Thunberg. She is a Swedish activist. And at the age of 15, she sat outside the Swedish parliament with signs, "Take action now. The world is on fire." And then slowly, now when she did this, she took off from school on a Friday because Parliament is not in session on the weekend. So it would mean, at the age of 15, that she would skip school. Suddenly, more people joined her. And through social media, the power of that, it spread worldwide. Youth across the country joined in. And here we see a picture of Alexandria Villasenor, a New Yorker. In December of 2019, she decided to start doing it herself. Every Friday, she would take her backpack filled with lunch, breakfast, and all drinks, and she would sit out in front of the UN with her own signs, demanding climate justice, and so on and so on. And suddenly, she was joined by masses of people from all over the tri-state area on Fridays. And it grew and grew and grew, and if you saw the masses around the world, you would be amazed. And not only did this spread worldwide amongst our youth, but adults were inspired and decided to join them in taking action. I'm not saying any of the adults aren't taking action. And one of the adults that was in the march this weekend was being interviewed by a CNN reporter, and he was sharing, I was so inspired. And Greta would say, when people would say, "Oh, you inspire me," she says, "I do not want your admiration, I want your action." Yeah, go girls, right. And so he said, how can I not start to take action? And then he said, these youth remind me of a modern day David and Goliath story. Now, many of us know David and Goliath's story, even if you didn't read all of 1 Samuel chapter 17 in the Hebrew Scriptures, also called the Old Testament. Even if you didn't read all that, or didn't learn anything about it, we hear the idiom used, the metaphor used, of David and Goliath. And we hear it used as David being the underdog, the weak, the vulnerable, taking action over the most powerful and mighty. But I want us to take a closer look at where true power is, where we glean our power. How do we cultivate it? And then how do we live from that? And shortly I'm going to give you a little clip of a biblical drama of David and Goliath. But before I do that, I just want to give you some background of this allegory. It took place about 3,000 years ago when King Saul reigned. He was the first king of the Israelites in the land what is now called Israel. And there were two warring armies, the Philistines and the Israelites. And they were back and forth vying for who had more power, who had more land, and they were fighting for land that was between the foothills between them. So one day, a Philistine said, hey, I know, this fighting back and forth, let's call for a duel. We'll put up our greatest warrior, you put up yours, and winner takes all. The winning side will not only gain all of the land, but the other side who loses will become servants of the other. So here, I give you that background as I share a clip. We tried to remove I'm not sure what language it is, but you still get the gist of it.
To secure the promised land, the Israelites must defeat the Philistines. But King Saul has lost God's blessing. And now he faces the Philistines' greatest champion, Goliath.
Israelites, you win, and the Philistines will be your slaves. I win, and you will be our slaves.
Someone must fight him, not you, Jonathan. The warrior who defeats him will be a rich man.
Not one man in Israel, not one of God's people.
I'll do it. You're not a soldier, you're a shepherd. Yes, a shepherd. So I protect my sheep, God will protect me.
Where is your faith? Where is your God?
I will kill him. Need this. I'll be better without it. Here I walk in the valley of the shadow of death. I fear no evil. You are with me. Thy rod and staff, they comfort me. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life.
Within ourselves, not people things out here. but there are aspects of ourselves in our consciousness. And when I say consciousness, I mean what we hold in thought, what we speak in word, what we hold and energize in feeling, and what we participate in action. That's all part of consciousness. And so when we look at the aspect of consciousness that Goliath represents within us, well, he is a Philistine. And the Philistine versus the Israelites, Philistines are, we have all those thoughts running in our head all the time. Some are charged with fear and error thinking and lack and doom and gloom, and others are energized like the Israelite thoughts with possibility, with hope, of joy, of wisdom. And sometimes we got it all going on. And so Goliath, though, happens to represent that error thinking, that fear, consciousness, when we feel great big overwhelmment because something, one of our greatest fears, we all have fears, maybe fear of the dark, that may be a great big one for some, and then we may have great big fear when we're given a diagnosis that frightens us, right? So Goliath consciousness is when we are so consumed and overwhelmed with great big fear. And when we are overwhelmed and consumed, what comes chicken or the egg, then we thereby experience it in our world. Or something happens in our world, we're looking outside, and then we are overcome by it. Loss of a job, and then we have this overwhelming Goliath fear. David, on the other hand, represents those thoughts. He represents the power of love, the love of truth, and the love of benevolence. And so those are the thoughts. David's thoughts represent those thoughts that are energized with that knowing of who I am, and where true power comes, which is within. We see here in this picture that Goliath has his mighty armor and sword. And we would say he's prepared. He's ready for that battle by outward appearances. But metaphysically speaking, that armor in our consciousness is what we do to shield ourselves from that fear that is lined with falseness. Right? So let me armor myself up with eating some chocolate cream pie. Let me armor myself up so I don't have to experience it feeling, and it'll go away. Maybe I'll just spew a little bit on people. Or that armor is, I am so energized in fear and possibly anger and overwhelmment that I live from that space and I am projecting it outward. Because I believe that's my armor. Let me attack back. Let me lash out. I use my weapon of that sword to represent all that I am angry and I retaliate back. David says, first you need to know a little bit something about King Saul, right? Now he's the king who should have been the one who protected his subjects. But Saul was kind of more interested in the status of king and his own interests, and was a little selfish, and was worried about protecting. It was all about me, me, me. Does it sound a little bit familiar to you?
Yes.
We know leaders like that, possibly. So, now you have to know in the Bible, it said that Goliath was over 6 cubits and then some. Now people translate that, I've seen it, 6'9" or 9'9". Either way, he's big, okay? He's massive. Which makes us believe how big, great is that fear. And so, nobody is going to volunteer. No way. I'm not volunteering volunteering to go against him. No way. So finally, David said, a shepherd boy, said, I will. And he's like, are you kidding me? You're just a young boy, King Saul. You know, what do you think you can do? You know, you're not trained as the warrior, as Mary sings in our song, but this time the soul warrior, right? Which is what David was. He says, no, I don't know that, but I am trained in slaying lions who come after my sheep. The sheep represent the innocents, those who be innocent and vulnerable, or a bear. I am really skilled and trained at that. So he's like, okay, no one else is going to do it. So, all right, David, you can do it. So he says, you know what, you're going to need armor. So he starts putting all this stuff on David, and he's like, I'm not used to this. Like, this is weighing me down. And when we have armor consciousness, believing the false, and spewing anger and hatred, and projecting our fear, or using, as they would say in A Course of Miracles, false idols to protect us, those things that we believe on the outside that will help us, we are weighed down in consciousness. So he said, you know what? I will not. I walk in the faith of knowing my divine ability, and I know I walk in the allness and possibility of God. I will do it. And so lo and behold, what does David have? He has 5 smooth stones and a slingshot. Now you notice it wasn't the slingshot that I thought. You know, did you ever do one of those kinds of things? This was a slingshot. You know, they're saying that the revolution of that movement and the speed that it would whip at, that whatever was released from it would have the speed of stronger, faster than a fastball pitch, which, what is it, 85 miles an hour? Those of you who are baseball fans, 90 higher, right? And the impact would be such as equivalent to being shot with a 45 caliber handgun. Okay? So that he knew he was gifted in. So I want us to take a look at what those 5 smooth stones were about. Now, we know we have 12 Christ-like ability, or Buddha ability. It is, when we say the Christ-like, we mean elevated consciousness, coming from that higher place of consciousness. And we have 12 spiritual abilities, but I really want to focus on 5 stones, 5 of those abilities that David and these young ladies, Alexandria and Greta, exhibit. You know how we say, we do the power of the month, from ego consciousness or elevated consciousness. David and these young ladies and our youth are using it from elevated consciousness. So I want to talk about smooth. Why don't I just say 5 stones? But it was 5 smooth stones. And the metaphysical meaning of the smoothness was he practiced. He was devoted to spiritual living. Daily devotion to reading, to uncovering that truth within, and studying, praying, and meditate our truth principles, right? Unity's teachings. God is, I am. My thoughts have the power to create, so I will use them with precision. And I will participate in affirmative prayer, affirming the truth, denying the false. And I will meditate. And then when I am energized with that knowing, I will live truth. Not just study, talk about it. I will be it. I will step forward. So that smoothness, 5 smooth stones, represent somebody who has spiritual understanding, who can discern spiritual wisdom. So I'm going to go into those 5 stones. Let's look at the power of love. Love is misused, but when we look at the power of love as one of our 12 abilities, we mean it is the ability to unify all our thoughts, our consciousness, actions, words, deeds, all of that what I said, in alignment with truth and benevolence. And it is to attract ourselves to that which we desire. Let's look at those young ladies, Greta and Alexandria. What did they desire? They desire a healthy planet. So they unified all of their actions and their words in the direction of that desire, organizing that march. And then they speak words of truth. I'm telling you, the words that come out of these individuals, we say that word, old souls. So she speaks words of truth. We are one. I do not want to hear about what side didn't take up the bill or did not. I am tired of hearing about which side did what. We are one people, living on this planet, breathing the same air. Let us take our differences and live as one and unify our action in the direction of healing and wholeness. Wow. Pretty amazing. Now we look at the power of faith. Faith is what we place our conviction and what we expect to happen. What convictions do we believe? And just like David, Greta, I can do it. I will do it. I will not judge by appearances how big or how small in the worldview I am. I have faith. I have faith that I have the ability to make a difference. I expect that as we join forces, that we will unify everyone and that this movement will grow, and together we will change the consciousness here to that which we desire. And then we look at strength. Strength is our ability to endure, stay the course. Right? Do you ever have those challenges in your life that just didn't go away like that? Maybe healing from something or recovering from a financial loss didn't happen just like that. And our ability of our strength is ability to keep on keeping on, staying the course. And it is our courage. It is our courage and Greta speaking these words, truth to power. When haters go after your looks and differences, it means they have nowhere left to go. She didn't attack back with hate. She's also, quote unquote, diagnosed with Asperger's. So this young lady, who people would believe is weak and incapable, and who was bullied beyond belief in school. Now she could have been way down with all that armor in her consciousness, but she chose again. Not by attacking and being vehement and being violent, by speaking truth, which leads to wisdom, the discernment, being able to discern the truth, to walk the truth, to discern a plan and to live by it, to use your power of intuition. Please let me be guided by the light within, because the noise out here is so loud. The noise, you are disabled. How can you take on the oil industries? How can you take on the lobbyists? How can you take on this broken government across the globe? But she used her intuition and her faith and her strength. And it takes us to the last one. And again, I can go on with all the powers. which is the power of dominion. Also sometimes called the power of power, the power of mastery. It is how we direct. We all have beliefs that flood ourselves, like I talked about before. All different color beliefs. Some that frighten us, scare us, worry us, disempower us. Some that energize, empower us. And then we get to choose, and then we have feelings, right? Sadness, anger, overwhelmment. But when you're wise and discerning, and then you step into dominion, I have power over my consciousness, my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions, and I choose wisely. I will speak words of truth and power, because I am the master, which is what David was. It didn't matter about what he was garbed in. He was the master of truth. He was a master of what he was spiritually gifted in. And we can see that these young ladies have a spiritual gift of leadership, of wisdom, of courage, motivation, the ability to rally. And as she speaks words of truth and power, listen to her words, take them in. When we have dominion over our emotions and thoughts, she says we need to get angry and understand what is at stake. And then, we need to transform that anger into right action. And to stand together, united, and just, and never give up. So often we see activists, when they're not aligned in the truth, spewing their anger and hatred. Now, I'm not saying that some of these things that they've experienced were not unjust. But when we spew anger and hatred, we create more groups to hate and more groups of the other. So, my friends, I'd like to close with asking you this question. What Goliath fears loom large in your consciousness and thereby in your experiences? Perhaps it's an addiction that you're trying to overcome. Or perhaps it's a mental or physical illness. Or perhaps you are wanting to overcome a fear to go on that next job interview after not getting a yes time and time again. Or maybe it's going on your first date after not dating for 5 years after a loved one passed, or you got divorced. Or perhaps it's revealing a secret to a loved one that you have kept hidden and thereby live in guilt and shame, perhaps over having an abortion, or giving up a child for adoption, or that you had a past history of drug abuse. Or perhaps it's over making the decision to go bankrupt because it is financially the best decision you can make. Or maybe it might be choosing a treatment plan after being diagnosed with cancer. Or should I go the natural route? Or for some people, which we may seem as giving up or failure, which is not. Maybe somebody who suffered for so long has desire to move to the next plane. Maybe that decision looms large. So I invite you that whenever Goliath shows up in your experience, in your consciousness, know that with 5 smooth stones of love, of faith, of strength, of wisdom, and of dominion, that you, my friend, can be the master of whatever is your greatest fear. May God bless you.